This is Mark and Charity's Coffee Podcast.
Mark and Charity Coffee Podcast for Friday, September the 9th today. Less than a day after joining the world in mourning the passing of Her Royal Highness, Queen Elizabeth II.
It was about this time yesterday, the time we're taping this, that the first reports started coming out that she was under medical supervision and family members were making their way. And I think when you hear that,
right, we're rushing.
It's a little more serious. Mm-hmm. There was a part of me that was hopeful that, okay, it's serious, right. But this isn't, she'll bounce back in a week. Mm-hmm. We just won't see her she'll need to take an extended leave. Maybe she'll step back and Charles will take on more. I don't think that I really did think, I know I didn't think at any point yesterday, this is it. Then
the stories will come out in a couple of months, how close she was to passing. And then, because we had that with Prince Philip too. I mean, he'd had health scares for a number of years.
Mm-hmm. And the Queen had COVID this past winter.
Right, yeah.
So
96.
And she had kind of stepped back, even with her Platinum Jubilee this spring. There were days she missed and events she missed. The woman was 96 years old.
That's right. I'm not going to all my celebrations.
She met with the new prime minister on Tuesday and passed away yesterday. But I think at 96, my grandfather, who I saw this week too, is 94. And I'd say he's a spry 94. He looked good. We were chatting away.
Right. But
I noticed even this week when I saw him, I thought, okay, yeah, he's not moving as slow, and he didn't want to go for a drive because he just thought, you know what, today I'm just gonna.
Right.
And I thought, yesterday, here's this woman who's 2 years older than him having to be and essentially perform,
right,
and be in the public eye. What kind of toll that must take? Of course, physically, but she's probably tired, to be at these events and doing. Yeah. Wow. She's done so well.
Friends of ours, his father passed away this week at 102.
Oh.
At the Belmont here in Belleville. 102. Fought in the battle for Ortona, Italy, when Canada helped to free that city from fascist rule, December of 1943. My uncle, my father's oldest brother, perished in that battle. 79 years apart, that this man lived and passed away this week in the same battle where my uncle died. And you think, wow, there but for the grace of God, in the same battle, 79 years difference. And then I think how all of these people, including that gentleman, for the most part, in their whole life, only knew Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
As the British monarch. That's it. Yes, she's the longest ruling, but then stop and think, what does that mean?
Well, and
we lived it. We saw it.
I don't know about you, but everywhere I went yesterday, even today, I'm listening to everything. I turned on the BBC and I'm watching everything I can, just taking it in. And of course, everybody's doing the recap, going through her entire career, her entire time as queen. She's had, 15 different prime ministers in Britain. Yep. Her first being Winston Churchill.
Right.
So after World War II, that time to now, she just met the current one Tuesday. 15 different British prime ministers.
Yep.
14 American presidents, 12 Canadian prime. She's gone through so much in her reign. Yeah. To go back and think, to stop and really think about what's happened in those 70 years.
Because I love
what she's been a part of, what's happened, what she's gone through, both personally, because the royals, we love to hear about what's going on with the royals, but also around the world. It's amazing. It really is.
Geopolitically, we, not that we forget, but we're not taught anymore, the significance of the British Empire for hundreds of years. There was always a saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire because there's always somewhere in the world that they own where there's daylight because they own properties around the world, countries, islands, the sun never sets. Geopolitically, after World War II, in Africa, for example, there were still so many colonies there, Australia, but the colonies were really becoming their own countries. And she had to make do with that. We were our own country, but we've remained we're so tight to the royal family.
Yeah.
Politically, yes. Protocol, of course. Do we rely on them every day? No. We have our own government. But we're great, kissing cousins. I don't know, right? There's still an affinity and an attraction and an affection for the royal family in Canada. No, we don't need them politically, because I'm sure that discussion comes up too.
Oh, sure.
That's not today.
And it'll come up now.
That's not
again.
for the next 10 days. But what a role she played. I talked to you off air about, if I go back to the 80s, because I love the story. I didn't understand it when it went through. I had no idea it existed. But the bond that Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and Pope John Paul II had in bringing down Russia and the Berlin Wall and solidarity in Poland, they all had a role to play in getting the wall down and knocking down Russia where they were. And then when the story started to come out after Ronald Reagan passed away and into the 90s and into the 2000s when documentaries were being made. Well, Margaret Thatcher's not going to do anything with at least the Queen understanding. So she knew what was going on and the ramifications of pissing off Russia. But we're going to do it anyway. And this is how we're going to do it. And Mr. Reagan would know about it and His Holiness the Pope. And okay. And she at least had a hand in it, not an official hand, but they weren't going to go and do anything as diabolical as bring down Russia without her being involved.
One of the interviews I heard yesterday was from former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Okay. And he essentially said the same thing. He said she had an amazing talent or ability to almost consult. Because you would sit and you talk to her about what was going on and how she felt about things, but she would talk to you without actually sharing how she felt about things. She would listen to you and she would, again, consult without actually giving you any sort of direction.
Right, telling you what to do.
Telling you what to do. Yeah. But he said she was very much a part of everything that happened. He said it was such an interesting ability to do that, to be to be knowledgeable and involved, but not involved, kind of like to go back and forth. So you say that, yes, Margaret Thatcher wasn't going to do anything without talking to her.
Right. Yeah.
Whether she actually said, yes, go ahead and do that or not, she was part of it. She was, I'm sure, giving advice in some way.
And perhaps the Queen couldn't tell her not to, but if you're going to do it, historically this has worked well.
Exactly. Because she had the experience, right? Yeah. She could talk about different instances of conflict, of resolution, of what worked, what didn't work, just food for thought. She was an advisor of sorts.
Yeah. So for 70 years, she was part of all of that history that I guess we do know, and we'll find out more. But then there's other things that came out too yesterday. It said, "Is our money good?" It's like, can we just wait a few days? But then you take a look at it, and it's like, well, of course it'll still be good. But what will our money look like in 10 years with King Charles III?
Oh,
because these $20 bills in my wallet that I have, they're still going to work.
Look around at her influence, her image,
her legacy,
her picture. I know, look at sports centers and arenas, community centers. Her picture hangs in a lot of those centers next to the Canadian flag.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember in school, her picture would be in school, sitting as we would say, "God save the Queen." Of course, they don't do that in school anymore. But that brings up the British national anthem, the national anthem in England. Her "God save the Queen."
Yeah,
that's going to have to change now.
Yeah,
"God save the King." And money-wise, it's still good, but I didn't even realize, her face is on the back of every coin.
Coins, bills, everything.
Yeah.
And the whole
what
idea
happens with that?
Was it polythene, whatever the sort of rubbery, clear plastic that our money is now, is designed to, and it was because it's designed to last like 20 years. So it's cheaper to make. Well, her picture's on it.
Yeah.
So, but let's say this. I'm going to assume that King Charles III is fine with his mother's face on Connect.
I would think so,
and
too.
would not order us to destroy it in 2 years, and because that would almost seem egotistical, and I don't see him doing that at all.
Well, on the other side of it, too, we have to remember Charles is 73 years old. And they say it'll take several years once the changes start, especially with the currency, like at least 7 years to kind of work its way through. That'll put him at 80. And not to say King Charles won't be around as long as his mother, But you get up into those years, and there's a question of, okay, we do all of this, and then do we change it again for William?
It's so funny that we talk in terms of that, because I'm sure in the Middle Ages, I could go back and look, the reigns of kings might have been 8 years, and then they're killed in battle.
It wasn't 70.
Or they died of syphilis. Like, I've taken enough history, right? Because they married cousins. Like, that's how they solidified. They solidified their kingdoms by never marrying outside the family and warring with everybody. If you live to be 50, holy smokes, that's like living to be 100 now. So the fact that we would think in terms of, we've just lost the longest reigning monarch at 70 years on the throne, which would be unheard of 500 years ago, and think, Charles may only reign for 20. Wow, like 20 would have been monumental.
And that'll put William...
war-torn Europe of the Dark Ages and the Renaissance.
Yeah, that would be the 70 years in that period. Yeah. It would be huge.
Yeah.
It's hard to get my head around. I'm not going to lie.
And then all
those
tiny little things, like Jason was saying in the news, the Queen's Plate race at Woodbine. Well, that's got to
become the King's?
The King will have to, probably, for all these little...
Never had a king.
And that's incidental. That's a small thing. We have so much to do to honor her legacy in the next 10 days, which may or may not involve getting a day of mourning in Canada, which means things shut down. It may happen. It may not. One protocol expert says...
We don't know, because it's been so long.
Exactly. He says, well, it has to, because that's tradition. Well, tradition 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And tradition today, coming out of a pandemic when we've had so many.
But you know what? I think the likelihood is higher that we will than not.
Okay. And
I do.
It'll fall on a Sunday, because protocol says 10 days after passing is the funeral. That would be a Sunday.
Well, then I don't necessarily think we need to take a day off. If it fell on a Monday or Tuesday, I would like to think that people would, because she is such an icon. And whether you're part of the Commonwealth or not, whether you have that connection directly to Britain or not, she was known. People loved her. I think she's big enough that would be carried out.
I believe that
especially here.
She would be one of the, the answer could be first. If you put her picture up, most recognizable person on the planet?
I think so.
I think if you put her picture up with a whole bunch of other pictures of famous people, that more people than would say, oh, Queen Elizabeth. Like, she's just so famous, like, because she's been around so long and done so much.
And what's kind of sad too, not that losing her isn't sad enough, but I did hear this morning on the way in, they were interviewing people in London, and there was a young girl, I shouldn't say young girl, about my age. And she said her daughter had said, Mommy, I will never have another queen. Because you think, she won't have another queen.
Right, she'll have
a young person coming up now will be King Charles, King William, King George, and depending on the children George has or how the line goes, how the monarchy continues. Yeah, because even though we have the queen consort, Camilla will never be queen. Kate will never be queen.
Right.
She'll be queen consort as well until there's another daughter. We've got generations of kings now coming.
Wow, interesting. I hadn't thought of that either. And even when you came in this morning and said King Charles III, it was like, that's the first time I'd heard it.
That jarred me yesterday. That really jarred me. Yeah.
Because, a bar discussion, a cottage industry was popping up on what will happen, assuming that Her Majesty lived to say 100, like 4 more years. So we're closing in on Charles being 80. And then when she passes, would he, just for the sake of long-term continuity, say, I step aside and bring William, so that William could be king for 50 years? I don't know what process goes in, whether he would have to, whether it automatically falls in, which it does, whether there's a vehicle other than what, King Edward did, or Edward did for the Queen Elizabeth's father to abdicate, or whether you have that option. Like, I don't know in modern times. I know there's protocols, But
sure
it clearly
is.
fell to him, and he's taking the responsibility, which by no means minimizes all the people that said, "Oh, come on, give it away." It's not up to.
But he's been waiting.
Yeah, and he's been working
He's been
toward
training.
it. Exactly. He's the most qualified.
Yes, he knows. And that's kind of, I was thinking that today, as again, sad as it is to lose the queen, I'm sure this is not expected for them. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming, because the way everything was released too, they were prepared for the passing of the queen, Buckingham Palace and the family, of course. But yeah, I at 73, I would think he knows, because there was that question too. He's also a very big advocate for certain causes. Environmental issues is a big one for him. And again, I heard an interview where he said, "No, I know what my job will be when I become king. I know that I won't be able to do what I'm doing now. When I become king, I'm going to have to, again, as I mentioned with Tony Blair, be non-biased, just kind of play it cool. And right. I can't be out there saying, no, you have to do this, and no, we have to do that. It's got to be balanced, and I got to take everything in. I can't focus on just these causes anymore." So I think he wants this. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just want to go back to something that you said. Yes, I'm sad, but there's a part of me that I don't feel sad. I don't feel relieved that she's gone. It's like, what a celebration. I guess there's a sadness when they go well before their time, but it's almost like, good for you. You finally get to rest because you've done so much. I'm glad she didn't suffer. I'm hoping she didn't suffer. We don't know what would have gone on the last. Yes, it's a sadness, but with it is like, wow, what a cell. It's like when my friend's dad passed away at 102. It's like, rest.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Diana's anniversary.
What a long journey. Good for you. Good for you.
Diana's anniversary was last week. And even last week, when everything was being revisited and she was everywhere, and we see those images again of William and Harry, I still felt like I felt a sadness. Yeah. There were times where I was like, oh, even still, like, this just breaks my heart, because she was so young, and those boys and everything else that went around. Yeah. What happened? Just that sadness. And you're right. There is a difference between that, losing that figure, to Queen Elizabeth. It is sad.
It is.
And I think we all feel it.
Mourning.
It's wow.
Yeah.
But you're right. There is a celebration too, because she had such an incredible life. And I think she really did leave. She's passed on at a time where, yes, there's still things going on in the background, certainly with the royal family, but she was undeniably loved. People loved her, and she had done so many wonderful things. Mm-hmm. And especially in the last little while, again, when they go through her life to see, as she aged, she did soften almost. And she did become more real and relatable, I think, to the public. Like the 2012, was it the Olympics where she was with James Bond?
Yeah.
Like Daniel Craig. And she's doing this little skit to kick off the Olympics. And then last year with her Jubilee, she's having tea with Paddington Bear.
And agreeing to do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like these moments of lightness, of genuine connection to the people, because we've talked about being, I think that's when Diana died, that disconnect with, quote unquote, the people. That turned it around, and there was that connection.
And I still see the image of her sitting by herself in the chapel at Prince Philip's funeral. And I wonder if, because clearly she's thinking, okay, I've lost my husband. I'm wondering how much longer. And just that thought of sitting alone. And it's like, I don't want her to be like that.
No, but
she
there again,
deserves so much more.
Her duty. Yeah, that was her. This is what's expected of me. This is what I have to do. This is what I'm supposed to do.
That burden is gone now. Like, rest.
Yes.
Good on you. Good on you.
Look what you've done. You've carried us all, and now.
Yeah.
Because there was a picture too of her. There's so many of them. Her walking with a cartoon of her walking with Paddington Bear. Oh, and then her sitting with Philip, and it's a sunset, and he's like, and it says, "It's nice to see you again, Lilibet. Now we can sit and rest."
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
You're right. Those moments. So
See,
I do feel good.
I guess I was sad yesterday. Now it's gone to good.
Yeah.
Now we have to get back to the business of governing and everything that we have to do and all the protocols. But lost in there, it was like the legacy. Good on her. Good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So there'll be much more about that when we get here on Monday. We'll continue to update this because for the next, as part of a 10 days of mourning that Britain will go through, Canada will go through.
And how much time do we have?
Oh, we have all the time in the world. It's got a podcast.
Because part of that coverage, and we were talking about this morning,
right, yes.
Lisa LaFlamme is returning.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, we don't want to forget that.
I will be watching that coverage for sure. And good to see, it's unfortunate that this is what she's covering. But good on City News. They've scooped her up, and she's going to be the lead correspondent for them over the next couple of 10 days.
Yeah. If any naysayer wanted to say, they were just looking for an opportunity. No. You don't just pluck somebody off the street to cover the most important news story now. You go to the most important individual who's available, and that's Lisa LaFlamme. Yeah. This is right in the wheelhouse.
She's going to be all over this and know her stuff, and good on them. Like, that's amazing. Amazing. And I hope CTV sees it and chokes.
They'll say, Lisa who? Yeah.
But
So that news story came out today. So
that's
all
awesome.
of that's going to be going on. Monday is what we're going to have Beat the Bank. It comes back for its fall run. Could be as much as $10,000 for Sandra Hussey of Exit Realty.
I do love
Hussey, call Hussey.
Beat the Bank.
Call her number 9. I know. She gets so
grinning.
giddy. Charity gets so giddy.
You're like, what?
I'm diabolical. It's like yin and yang. You just want them all to win, and I'm like, are you suffering, listener? How nervous are you?
I just want to give them money.
It's fun.
It is fun.
And we'll have your Monday morning mystery year and lots more. So enjoy your weekend, everybody, okay? All of the news stories, there will no doubt be local remembrances, celebrations, books of remembrance that are going to begin to pop up over the weekend. Keep it tuned to inquinty.ca for the latest for all of that information, and we'll be back in on Monday. Have a good weekend, okay?
You too.